Okay, 7:30. I'd like to call the meeting of our 21st of August Planning and Zoning Commission to order. And I think you'll notice that Alex is not here. He's absent. He had a funeral to attend in the Baltimore City. It's a shame. We got a good man is gone. So without any of the comments, we'll look at the the June 19th meeting minutes. And I think I would like to call on someone to take a look at those and possibly approve these.
I make a motion that we approve the June 19th meeting minutes as submitted.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's passed. Thank you. Okay, report to our staff.
The only information I wanted to pass on to you was at the council meeting this month, Sheets did come in to give a little update as to where they were. They do have just a few stormwater management, which I just gave
Yeah,
you.
the comments from August 1st.
Right, that's pretty much all they're waiting on. They said as soon as they address those, they're going to come back to us for their final. And in giving some information, they said the store is going to compare it to the one that they did in Westminster in size. Actually, I think they said ours was a little larger. And they're looking to begin construction in 2019 with a 6-month shutdown.
2019. Have you noticed that new store on 140?
I
You
haven't
haven't?
seen it.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's
No.
big.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Town, any comments from the town?
Just a couple real quick comments for your interest. We will be getting a Trailblazer transit stop
Right.
beginning September the 10th. And
Right.
that stop will be located nearby the Manchester Post Office, which is much needed for this area. That's a plus. And earlier, of course, we were talking about the rainfall that we received over the month of July, and our wastewater treatment plant actually measured 16.52 inches of rainfall for the month of July. We did have some issues throughout the town. In fact, we are addressing one of the issues, which really caused some major problems. But thanks to our Public Works Department and our Police Department, we handled those issues with no problem. So,
Infrastructure hold up generally well.
infrastructure held up well. As I said, we do have some problems with some of our stormwater pipes being undersized for the amount of flow that we receive. But you have to understand that I think we had 3 100-year storms in 3 weeks.
Right.
So under normal conditions, as you well know, and the engineer in the audience, everything's fine. But it's those multiple back-to-back storms when your ponds are full and your ponds are completely integrated with water and it won't drain anymore, then you have to look ahead. So, but yeah, we handled it well. So, very good.
Thanks, Steve. I rode the Manchester Hampstead Trailblazer route,
Very good.
and it's great.
Good. That's fantastic.
And of course, there'll be Manchester Manor is going to be a stop.
That's correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, pretty excited about that. We received a lot of good comments from some of the people in the neighborhood that, we're coming from the Limeburg area. They'll be able to park around the post office and hop the Trailblazer and
Right.
go to different locations.
Yeah.
They love it,
Yes.
or they
So
will.
it looks good.
Yeah, we haven't had anything like that.
We have not. We have not.
It's a nice,
It is a nice amenity. That's correct.
And the article in the Carroll County Times was good.
Yes,
It really was.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Council.
Council will, in addition to our normal business, happy to say it was a unanimous decision to pass a resolution to adopt the 2018 comprehensive plan. And all the hard work by the Planning and Zoning Commission was recognized and appreciated. So they were very appreciative of all the hard work. They recognized everything that went into that. It was a long time coming. We did it. That's it.
Yeah, Jim did a good job.
Yeah.
He really did.
He summarized it well for the council.
Yeah.
Yeah, not taking too much time, but he's touching on just the right points.
He really did. Okay, how is Carroll County?
We're doing good.
I was like what Steve said, and you mentioned earlier, Trailblazer is gonna be bringing a new route here, which we've gotten great feedback from both Hampstead and Manchester. And overall, in the accomplishing all of this, we also decided to have a major central hub, which would be at the Burke Center and right across from the county office building. So that would be one spot where everybody can go and have transfers and that kind of thing. So the route is, I think, a long time coming, and I believe it's one that people will enjoy. They're also in the process of looking at other potential aspects, maybe not a guarantee, but bike racks, that kind of thing, potentially on the buses, should that become something people would like to have. Obviously, the county, one of our planners decided to leave Nokomis Ford, so she went on to work part-time and spend more time with her little daughter. So we're in the process of starting interviews in the next 2 weeks to fill the position for the planner one position. But she was also head of the bike ped master plan, which Claire Stewart has taken over, and we're still continue to roll with that, and Claire has been very involved with that, so she will keep that ball rolling fairly quickly and seamlessly. Of course, the Freedom Plan, slowly but surely, we're getting there, I believe. Planning Commission today met, and they're gonna do potentially look at a traffic impact study for the 3 big properties that are in the Freedom area. And then that'll probably take about, hopefully, a month and a half, maybe 2 months at the most. And then all those recommendations will be forwarded to the commission, the county commission. And then besides that, there's not too much, anything major crazy that's going on that will cause anybody any headaches or anything like that.
That's a good thing.
I agree.
Thank you. Okay, looks like the Maiden Lane car wash issue coming up. I think we're anxious for that.
Steve, where do you want this?
Oh, they have it on camera.
You're good.
You're good.
But I'll be standing in front of it.
Well,
You could take the
You want to move
mic.
it to the side, Marty, and then if you move it off to,
Guys, can you see it okay?
yeah, let me readjust, let me ask them to readjust that, and that should not be a problem.
Okay. Thanks for having us this evening on the agenda. I'm Marty Hackett with CLSI. I'm with Cork Blake, which is the owner of the properties out there, and Drew Dressler, which is the car wash equipment guy, so we can talk about anything you need to on that. Also Scott Albright, which is the contractor. So what we wanted to do was mainly, this job was around years ago, and he wanted to start the process again with the town. So there's been some changes to like stormwater management and stuff like that. So what I recommended to Cork is to go ahead and let's informally come into the town, meet with everybody, talk about any, questions or concerns or anything like that regarding the thing before he made all the changes to bring the site plan up to today's standards, if you will, and spend all that money until, when maybe we can, discuss it and figure out which way we want to go forward. We about a couple months ago, I guess it was, we did meet with Steve and Michelle regarding the plan. I think that obviously the equipment and the stuff has come a long way, modernization, for reclamation and all that stuff. So we're here to answer any questions, but I can start by just talking, and obviously, maybe we'll talk about the water just to get started on something. This thing, the gentleman, Drew, will sit there and he can talk about it, but when he projects stuff based on traffic patterns and all that stuff through Maryland Route 30 and the whole region and all based on data, he's anticipating about 60 washes average a day is what he was saying. And correct me.
60 per bay.
Per bay.
50?
60 per bay,
60.
average. And what happens is that this is a reclaimed system. Once the tanks are filled up, the initial fill obviously is several thousand gallons in the tanks when you initially fill it. After that, the average daily use is about 750 gallons per day. And what that equates to, coincidentally, is there's 3 lots out there. An individual single-family home is roughly 250 gallons a day times the 3. It's very similar usage that what you'd have for the 3 houses that were out there, which, is a kind of a pleasant surprise to us. Yeah, I would, I'm not in the business for car washes, so, when I heard that, it's pretty innovative. That part of it, we would obviously be tying in from the main out. What happens though, just so we know, the 750 gallons a day, that would be basically the same that would go into the sewer system as well. So that, we talked about, you can certainly try to reclaim or utilize some rain. But what happens is that if the rain, you basically be putting more rainwater into the sewer system, but you wouldn't be using it on the side of your domestic flow. Again, it's not that much water when you equate to 750 gallons a day. Could it be 1,000 gallon one day and 500 during the week? It's probably gonna be low. We were talking about just averages through the week. Anything you want to add, Drew?
Well, we're trying to recapture as much of the water as possible to minimize the amount of water going into the sewer. So we can recapture 75% of the water, 80% of the water.
Excuse me, if you don't go up and stand up there, we don't catch you on,
Oh.
so, it won't. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So I guess what I was saying is, we try to capture about 75 to 80% of the water, and we can reuse that in the car wash and still provide a good, clean car. So we soften water for the final rinse, and that would be the amount of water that Marty's talking about. That would be, we'd be fresh water, and then it would go into the sewer.
Thank you.
Sure. You want me to stay up here?
You can certainly stay up if
Okay,
you like, just in
sure.
case.
So let me get that straight. You're saying 750 gallons will go in, and that's rinse water, or what is
That
contained
would be
in
the
the water?
amount of water that would be discharged
Okay.
every day.
And is there a higher concentration of chemicals, soaps than your typical household discharge?
The chemicals are biodegradable, and we actually would use chemicals that are reclaim compatible. So you wouldn't be discharging anything any different than a restaurant or, more probably than your home, but not any more than any other commercial business, I wouldn't think.
The other thing, if you want to mention about the pH balancing.
Well, Steve was talking about that. My distributor here was talking about how we balance the pH so there isn't any impact on whatever is going into the sewer.
It's neutralized. Yeah.
It's neutralized, correct.
We had, during our meeting, Steve, you want to add anything?
I think a couple of things that I brought up. I took notice at other car washes where in the wintertime, they call, I think it's called blow-by, they let the wands run because they don't want
They don't want them to freeze.
they don't want them to freeze up. Well, these are automatic systems.
Correct.
Correct.
Plus, I believe Mr. Blake said that they're going to be heated.
Correct.
So we won't have that waste of water or that blow-by going by, which is a plus. Since 2006 or 7, as Marty said, Mr. Hackett said, the equipment has gotten much better, and the reuse water, the percent is now 75, 80%, which is great.
So what's your gut feeling? You know water, I don't know water systems, or
After
you
looking.
have trepidation
I do,
Okay.
I do not. I looked at this plan very hard when the gentleman come in, and, you know, with the new recycling equipment out on the market today, because in the car wash business, I would assume that water is your big cost.
Water and
So
sewer.
if you can reduce that in any way you can by recycling it, yes, it makes sense.
So from a water standpoint, we're good. Now, I was on the commission back in '07 when this came before us, and other commission members expressed significant concerns about traffic moving through Maiden Lane to and from the site, particularly in wintertime, when you're plowing snow and the road narrows. And there had been a suggestion to have a traffic study done in there.
I think we brought that up during our meeting, and I was concerned about the icing issue at the entrance. And when vehicles come out of the car wash, any water that would be brought along with them would be brought out to Maiden Lane.
Right, where it would freeze.
And Mr. Blake had talked about that, about
Get
the driveway would be,
a couple things there. The driveway, he's planning on putting a thermal
that's
type
correct.
heat from the front of the building out.
Okay.
Also with that is, he's got the ability to set up the washes, to have whatever type of wash you want, and included in every wash, will be the blowers that blow most of the water off right there as you're coming out. It's not gonna blow it all off, but it's a way to really minimize that type of impact. Yeah, sure.
I think one of the other things that we talked about.
Can you introduce yourself?
Sure.
so that
I'm
people-
Scott Albright. Going to be the GC with Cork to try to build this thing. We have a 40-foot offset from the front of the building to Maiden Lane. We also have a trench drain that runs the full length. As Marty said, once the water is blown off the vehicle, common, I think you mentioned, Drew, 25 feet is the common path for the water to drip off the vehicle. So I think we almost have no water at all going to end up in Maiden Lane. Between the trench drain, between what gets blown off, and just the distance from the front of the building to the lane. So just want to throw that out there.
You know, there was a time where just mere mention of water had everybody all up in arms. But what caught my attention most was 60 washers per day per bay. I'm just curious, with the population of Manchester and with a car wash not far down the road, how do you arrive at that kind of estimate?
We look at the traffic counts and determine a percentage of the cars going by there. And so that's a fairly conservative number based on the amount of cars that we saw. So it's probably about 100 cars per day, but that's if he was on the main road on Highway 30 there. So there's going to be some marketing that's going to need to be done, and the car wash will become a destination. So it's still a very conservative number based on the amount of cars basically that were on Highway 30.
Do you know off the top of your head approximately how much goes through the Hampstead car wash? As far as per bay, not total, because there are more bays, of course, but
I'm sorry, what was your question?
about how many washes go through the Hampstead car wash?
I wouldn't have the size idea.
I'm just curious.
Our equipment, the average is about 35 cars per day in our fleet of the washes, but they can do as much as 150 a day. So you're looking at approximately 10 cars an hour, roughly.
Will there be any signage on 32? No, no signage.
It's probably gonna have to be some sort of marketing thing as far as advertising and
Okay.
if anything, maybe some billboard signage or something like that. But nothing, I don't think Court would have any property that would be eligible to place a sign with arrows or something to point back to it.
Sign on the face of the building, and that'll be.
But it's kind of ironic. Westminster has one particular car wash that's actually rather busy, but it's with the wand and all, it's a self car wash. But it's off of a back alleyway, and it maintains to be pretty darn busy. It's over near
How about the courthouse as you weave through to get back over to
Yes,
32?
it's
and
back
Main
behind
Street?
the auto,
24th Street.
it's sort of hidden back there on that alleyway. And they maintain, pretty decent business. I always stop by there sometimes on the way home and spray off the truck, but, so I've never seen that thing advertised, but people the people in the community know where it's at. The other thing I want to bring up, and I think we talked about this with Steve and Michelle, was having the thing locally when there is a drought, and you guys start, taking people at their residences and ramping back and saying, hey, you can only wash your car on certain days or this, that, and the other. Well, there's a place locally to go. Now, that's a huge market for Cork because that people are going to be funneled to go there, but it's something that's available to the community. So, and we thought that was a positive. And, you never know. How often do you normally have to, not this year, obviously, but
Knock on wood, it's been a good many years since we had
Yeah.
to institute, a water ban, so. And we do it in stages,
correct.
so.
I apologize if you addressed this while I was taking some notes, but Henry brought up the past concerns over traffic studies. I don't remember what.
Yeah, because we've determined that we have efficient equipment that minimizes water use. We're gonna put neutralized water back into the system, and they're gonna make allowances for minimization of freezing on the road. But we still get back to the point that we got an 18-foot wide alley that's servicing a car wash. And when we originally met on this, there were a number of citizens that expressed concern who live on the alley that say when you're plowing snow, it basically becomes a one-lane road back through there. So we're still looking at the issue of how we're gonna handle increased traffic in those situations, because typically in winter, that's the time people come to the car wash. They get salt.
Right.
And debris all over the car, so use is gonna increase at times when potentially the road width is gonna be somewhat minimized to handle the traffic. And I'm just, you're talking about 60 cars per day, that's 120 cars,
Throughout the day,
that's reasonable usage. And
correct.
realistically, midday is gonna be, maybe on weekends not so much, but during the week, midday probably won't be that busy because people work.
Right.
So you're gonna have potentially peak usage at times when you have peak usage for commuters coming and going to work. So, I mean, it's just
Right.
something I think I know, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but that was an issue that was brought up previously, and that hasn't gone away yet. We just want some assurances that the residents aren't gonna be compromised in their access to and from the site because of.
I know
Vehicle
you
use.
had a traffic study done.
We did a traffic study.
Did you do one?
Yes.
Yeah, because I know there was a request made back in '07.
What we can,
We did an original traffic
Introduce
study.
yourself.
Oh, Clarence Blake's the real name, everybody calls me Cork. We did an original traffic study and we also did a foot study that they wanted back then. And as far as the traffic goes during rush hour, it's gonna be the same cars. I mean, your same volume of traffic is gonna be there pretty much.
Potentially.
if that's on the main road, what he's talking
Yeah.
about is actually bringing in the vehicles into the alleyway.
You'd be surprised how many people
Oh,
during
yeah.
rush hour come back to that alley, going south in the mornings.
What I would do is we can go ahead and pull the traffic study that was
Yeah.
done. I think that if we use that and we could look at some growth rates or something instead of doing a study from scratch, because the findings are gonna be very similar as far as whatever they
Yeah,
are.
I don't dispute that,
But we can certainly look at that. And I'd have to study on it to see if there's a remedy for, certain things, and we might be,
Yeah,
it's
because
not
I
a-
think that, from my standpoint, I think you've addressed a lot of the issues that were originally raised for this thing. Steve is nodding his approval for the water consumption, so.
Right.
That was a big concern back then, so if Steve is satisfied, I'm satisfied. And you've, other issues, as far as impact on the sewers, quality of the water, the icing issues, sounds like you've addressed all that.
We've
We're,
tried
we're,
to.
we're very, I'm pleased with those. So we just really need to look at that traffic situation and see what it really is, and make sure that we don't have any significant impacts on the property owners on the lane.
Okay.
That's my main concern. I can't speak for other board members, they're not here.
Yeah, we tried to address all the concerns that were raised before, and we think we got them all covered.
Now, were
And
you still thinking about a 5 AM to 11 PM operating schedule on this thing?
we weren't, we can do whatever. I mean, I don't think it's an issue anymore
Yeah,
to
okay,
just leave it open, but
yeah.
Well, I have to say, the BZA approval for that use in the BL was dictated that it be no more than 5 AM to 11 PM.
Yeah.
okay.
So that is in the
My only,
BZA.
my only thinking was, whether that could be pushed an hour either way, maybe 6 to 10 or something like that. I mean, they indicate that the noise was not supposed to be an issue from the car wash. But if we
Right.
got electric dryers and things, I don't know how loud they would be, at 5 AM or 5:30 if somebody's in there and you got adjoining residents. Just something to consider. I'm not saying I'm married to it, but it might be something to look at.
Okay.
I understand you gotta run your business to make a profit, but I also wanna be cognizant of the neighbors. And if something's gonna happen there, we wanna be respectful.
I'm sure there's ways we could probably program the equipment to where even if the wash bays were open, because they don't make that much noise, to where maybe just in the summertime or something, we could eliminate the dryers blowing.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, we
Yeah, that might be
we
something
can
to look at.
program the equipment to pretty much do anything we want.
okay.
Would the commission be opposed that what we do is that we'll go back and look at the traffic stuff, work with Steve and Michelle, and then we'll come back here to talk about it further on just the traffic side, since
Yeah.
that seems to be the.
I think that's
big-
reasonable, sure.
And that way, again,
And that way we
I've known
should
Cork
have
a while.
the other
Yeah.
commission members here as well.
Yeah, and I think
That
some
would
of
be
the,
great.
some of the items that we had talked about when they met with Steve and I was ways, we know that the issue is Westminster Street and Maiden Lane. That's the tightest. So some of it was if you made it right turn only out of there, that you go down to New Street. In the previous traffic study, which I can give you copies, I'll have to get copies made up, or you could just come in and look at it at your leisure. It was indicated then that New Street was fine and performing fine, but it was the other end.
Yeah.
That we'd certainly be able to sit there, and we could do a right turn where you're guiding people to make that right turn out all the time. Will people break the law? Yeah, probably, but for the most part, they would.
Most
they would
people
follow
would be
it.
respectful.
Is that area staked out so we can take a look at it?
It's,
The signs say lot 1, lot 2, right? Is it, they still there?
I think that
Little
somebody
signs?
knocked them over, but I can have them put back up tomorrow morning if you want.
I was just curious.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way we can go take a look at it.
Michelle, BZA made some decisions 11 years ago based on what was presented. How does that apply now in 2018?
the BZA decision was not based on this car wash site plan. The BZA decision is based on whether that use is allowed there.
Right, exactly.
So the use BZA has nothing to do with being that time or this time. It's just it allowed it. It did, however, set in there, first they said no 24 hours, and they weren't going to pass it at all. And then they modified the time, and then they passed the BZA. So
Right.
the time was the biggest issue.
Yeah, it wasn't predicated on the site plan, it was just whether the use was permissible in that business zone, which they found it to be, and obviously it said that a plan needed to be approved by this board.
What was you told us the decibel levels from the equipment were,
Less than an alarm clock buzzer, very low,
Of the blowers?
of the machine.
Machine.
Machines, yeah.
and the nearest resident, I think, is probably 100 yards away.
There's mostly commercial in that area.
Yeah. Yeah, but to get back to what you were saying, Mr. Hackett, yeah, just talk it over with Michelle and Steve and
Yeah.
come back.
And we'd like, and again, it can be informal, because my goal, and I told Cork, is that let's go and try to get the stuff worked out.
Right.
Before, because once the clock starts ticking on modifying the stormwater management, bringing it, it's a lot of money, and
Right,
We're just
you don't
trying
wanna throw money away at something
Exactly.
if we're gonna
Appreciate
tell you to
that.
change something, so.
Yep.
We're happy to give you our
Absolutely.
guidance up front to try to make this thing work.
Well, perfect.
That's exactly what we wanted to hear. Thank you.
We don't really have anything else.
They talk about that.
Okay.
Do you have any questions anymore?
I thought this was the perfect level of
For a
detail.
free car wash.
Yeah, right.
We can't do
Not
that.
allowed to do that.
I'm just teasing.
This was the perfect level of detail for tonight. This was a good introduction.
Yeah, get us an introduction, bring us back up to speed on it.
Great. Well, thank you very
Okay.
much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. We don't have any public comment,
No public.
so
Looking for a motion to adjourn?
I guess we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll
About
make
80.
a motion that the meeting be adjourned.
And I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we're
Aye.
out of here at 8 o'clock.
There we go. Yeah, so the traffic impact study that was done before too didn't account for that many trips either.
Well, that's why I want to see it.
Yeah.
It did like, it was like 15, how was that? 14 weekday evening and 51 Saturday.
I can remember the old stakes, but I don't know.
Yeah, I remember them out there too.
But just, they will put some new stakes in the ground and
And I don't know if I'd want to necessarily leave it open until 11 o'clock. 10 o'clock, I would think 6.